Late at night, on the 60th floor of the Apex Solutions Tower, fluorescent lights flickered against the glass walls and marble floors. Serena Jackson, a 32-year-old Black American woman, pushed her cleaning cart through the silent hallway. Her navy blue uniform clung to her body, designed to blend into the shadows of post-midnight hours. With rubber gloves and tightly pinned-up hair, Serena moved like a phantom, part of the invisible crew that kept Manhattan's financial heart gleaming. But within her burned a quiet fire, the dream of turning an abandoned warehouse in Harlem into an arts and technology center for the neighborhood's children. Tonight, something felt different. The stillness of the building felt heavier, broken only by the soft rattling of cartwheels and the steady rhythm of sneakers against the marble. Serena was used to long night shifts. 6 years at Apex had taught her how to glide past power offices without leaving a trace, except for immaculate cleanliness. But her heart beat a little faster when she stepped into the corner office of Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Apex Solutions. Not because she had met him, she never had, but because of his reputation. A 35-year-old white American man, sharp, cold, who had transformed Apex from a struggling tech firm into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Business magazines called him the ruthless innovator. The janitorial staff called him the man who never leaves the office. Ethan's office was unlike the flashy rooms of other executives. There were no grand family portraits or ostentatious trinkets, just minimalist lines and an abstract painting with blue and gray swirls hanging behind the desk, evoking the image of a storm at sea. Serena began her work, wiping down the ebony desk and reorganizing neatly stacked files. When she accidentally nudged a stack of papers, a black leather notebook fell to the floor, its pages scattering like wings. She dropped to her knees to gather them, but her eyes froze on what lay before her. Inside the notebook were not the financial numbers or revenue charts Serena had expected. Instead, she saw sketches, buildings with glass roofs and playgrounds, classrooms filled with computers, walls covered in vibrant murals. Beside them were handwritten notes, sharp penmanship but full of passion. Harlem Community Tech Hub, free coding classes, art space for teens. There was even a map of her neighborhood, with red circles marking potential locations, including the exact warehouse Serena had dreamed of reclaiming. Her heart pounded. This wasn't a corporate strategy for profit. This was her dream, written by a stranger. Before Serena could process her shock, a soft click sounded behind her. The office door had shut and locked. She turned sharply, the notebook still clutched to her chest. Ethan Caldwell stood there, tall in a charcoal suit, deep blue eyes fixed on her. He didn't look like the polished magazine covers. His brown hair was slightly tousled, and his eyes carried a visible weariness. "You've seen it," he said, voice low and measured. Not a command, but a confession. Serena swallowed hard, feeling caught. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, extending the notebook toward him. It fell. I was picking it up. But Ethan didn't move. He crossed his arms, eyes drifting from the notebook to her face, as though assessing something deeper. "What do you think of those plans?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. Serena blinked, unsure. I'm just a janitor. I don't know anything about business plans." But Ethan shook his head lightly, a faint smile on his lips. "You're not just a janitor, Serena Jackson. You graduated from NYU with a master's in community development. 6 years ago, in your application to Apex, you wrote about using art and technology to transform Harlem. I read it, and I never forgot." His words struck her like an electric current. She felt both exhilarated and unnerved. How could a CEO like Ethan Caldwell know anything about her? An anonymous cleaning worker? And why did he care? Why did you keep my file? She asked, voice slightly trembling. Ethan stepped closer, just a few paces, enough to bridge the gap but not intimidate. Because I recognized vision, and because the plans in that notebook, he gestured toward her hands, are dreams I've kept hidden for years. No one on the board knows. They'd think I was insane for proposing to spend millions on community projects instead of shareholder returns. Serena looked down at the notebook, her fingers unconsciously stroking the soft leather. So, why show it to me? She asked, searching his eyes for sincerity. Ethan drew a deep breath, as if waging an internal battle. Then he pressed a button on the desk, and the lock on the door clicked again, sealing the room. He said, "Because I want you." His voice firm, but not predatory. Serena stiffened, her heart racing, and images of powerful men and vulnerable staff flashed. But before she could react, Ethan raised his hand gently, signaling calm. "Not the way you think. I want your opinion, your vision. I want to know if you think these plans are viable, or just the delusions of a CEO who sat in this office too long." The sincerity in his tone eased Serena slightly, though she remained cautious. She opened the notebook, flipping to a page showing an outdoor tech playground. "These things," she said slowly, "they're not just ideas. They could change lives. But Harlem doesn't need saviors from above. The community needs people who understand it, not a company looking for good PR." Ethan nodded, his eyes lighting up like she had just confirmed what he'd hoped. "That's precisely why I need you. I can provide resources, but you understand Harlem from the inside. You've lived there all your life." A rush of mixed emotions flooded Serena. Excitement, doubt, and a twinge of fear. This was the opportunity she'd always dreamed of, but it came from a man whose world she had never trusted. She said, "I need time to think," voice steady, despite her racing pulse. Ethan nodded, retrieving a thick envelope from his desk. "This is the contract. Whether or not I remain CEO, it guarantees $5 million for Harlem community projects. Please read it. Get a lawyer if you'd like. I'll wait for your answer." As Serena stepped out of the office, the chill of New York night air bit her skin. She clutched the envelope tightly, her mind spinning. In her coat pocket, the old key to the Harlem warehouse, a keepsake from her mother, sat silently, as if reminding her of the dream that led her to this moment. Was this the chance to finally make that dream real? Or just a trap set by a world she had always stood on the outside of? Pale morning light streamed through the window of Serena Jackson's small apartment in Harlem, illuminating the thick envelope Ethan Caldwell had given her the night before. Serena sat at the kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee beside her, eyes fixed on the contract. The crisp, legal lines promised $5 million for community projects in Harlem, regardless of Ethan's future at Apex Solutions. It was enough to transform the abandoned warehouse, where her mother once dreamed of painting vibrant murals, into a center for technology and the arts. But inside Serena, a storm of doubt churned. Was this real, or just a ploy by a wealthy CEO trying to polish his image? She picked up the old warehouse key, a keepsake from her mother, turning it slowly between her fingers. 6 years of night shifts at Apex had taught her that men like Ethan, powerful white men in expensive suits, rarely did anything without self-interest. And yet, his notebook, filled with meticulous sketches and passionate notes, told another story. They didn't feel like the work of an opportunist. They bore the mark of someone who had witnessed broken communities like hers. The phone rang, cutting through her thoughts. Ava Thompson, Serena's best friend since high school, appeared on the screen. "Serena, are you okay?" Ava's voice was filled with concern. "You texted me at 3 a.m., about a CEO and some contract. What's going on? Serena took a deep breath and recounted the unexpected meeting with Ethan, the notebook, and his proposal. Ava was silent momentarily before responding, her tone sharp as a blade. Serena, you know how this world works. People like Caldwell don't hand out millions without expecting something in return. Are you sure this isn't just a power play? Ava's words cut deep. Serena looked down at the contract, her certainty wavering. Ava had grown up with her in Harlem and had witnessed broken promises from politicians and business people who arrived with cameras and left once the lights faded. I told him Harlem doesn't need a savior, Serena said, trying to keep her voice steady. But he knew about my file, Ava. He knew about my dream. How do you explain that? Ava sighed. He may have dug into your background to use you for his agenda. Be careful, Serena. Don't let your dream become someone else's tool. After hanging up, Serena stood and walked to the corner of the room where she kept her sketches. Drawings of a community center with coding classrooms, art studios, and tech playgrounds. They were eerily similar to what Ethan had drawn in his notebook. She couldn't deny the coincidence, but could she trust someone from a world she had always stood outside? She slipped the contract into her bag and decided to meet with a lawyer Ava had recommended to verify the document's authenticity. That afternoon, Serena stepped into a law office in central Harlem. Denise Carter, a black woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the contract silently. This document is legitimate, she finally said, adjusting her glasses. It binds Apex Solutions to fund $5 million for community projects, even if Caldwell is no longer CEO. There are no hidden clauses. But she looked directly at Serena. You need to understand that working with someone like Caldwell comes with risks. Your project could be impacted if he loses internal support at the company. Serena nodded, feeling both relief and weight. The contract was real, but the decision still rested on her shoulders. That evening, Serena returned to Apex Solutions, not as a janitor, but as someone carrying an answer. She knocked on Ethan's office door, heart pounding. He opened it, still dressed in a dark suit, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. You've made a decision? He asked, voice low but hopeful. Serena placed the contract on the desk, her gaze unwavering. I'll work with you, but under conditions. This isn't your charity project. Harlem will have real decision-making power. I don't want a single dollar spent without the community's consent. Ethan smiled, not the smug grin of a CEO, but a light relieved expression, as if she had just passed a test. I agree. But you should know, my board won't accept this easily. They want profits, not dreams. Serena crossed her arms, eyes sharp. Then, we'll have to prove that this dream can be profitable. I don't just know the community. I know how to work efficiently. I've managed budgets for volunteer projects in Harlem with a fraction of this funding. Ethan nodded, pulling a new folder from his desk. This is the preliminary outline for the Harlem Center. I'd like you to review it and give feedback, not as an employee, but as a partner. Serena took the folder, feeling a mix of excitement and unease. She flipped to the first page. A detailed plan, free coding classes, open art studios for teens, and a community shop selling handmade goods to generate revenue. The shop's a good idea, she said thoughtfully. However, we'll need vocational training programs to sustain the center long term, and we need to hire from within Harlem, not outsiders. Ethan scribbled notes quickly, eyes focused. You're right. I overlooked the training angle. He looked up at her with an evident respect in his gaze. You see what I can't, Serena. That's why I need you. His words sent a warmth through her, but she quickly suppressed it. This was business, not friendship. She couldn't let feelings cloud her judgment. As she left the office, Serena received a text from Ava. "Meet me at the coffee shop tomorrow morning. I need to know you're okay." She smiled, knowing Ava wouldn't stop worrying. But as she stepped into the street, the cold New York air no longer made her shiver. In her coat pocket, the old warehouse key felt heavier, as if it was whispering that she had just opened a new door that led to opportunity and risk. Could she and Ethan turn their shared dream into reality? Or would this become a mistake that cost her everything? On Monday morning, Serena Jackson walked into the Apex Solutions Tower excitedly and uneased. Gone was her navy blue janitor's uniform. In its place, a simple black suit, hurriedly bought from a shop in Harlem with the help of Ava Thompson. Today marked her first day as Director of Community Initiatives, a position Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Apex, had unexpectedly offered her after their fateful meeting the week before. In her coat pocket, the old warehouse key, a keepsake from her mother, reminded her of a dream inching closer to reality, a technology and arts center for Harlem. But as the elevator climbed to the 60th floor, the skeptical stares from other employees made her feel like an outsider in a world of expensive suits. News of Serena's appointment had spread like wildfire. As she entered the administrative wing, whispers trailed behind her. "She was a janitor last week, wasn't she?" An assistant murmured to a colleague. "What game is Caldwell playing?" Serena kept her back straight, eyes fixed on Ethan's office door. She had prepared herself for this skepticism, but it still cut like a blade. She wasn't just representing herself. She was carrying the weight of Harlem, and her community would not accept failure. Ethan was waiting in his office, early light pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows, highlighting his face. A white American man, with slightly tousled brown hair and sharp blue eyes. "Welcome, Serena," he said, offering a faint smile, though tension showed in his eyes. "Are you ready?" "The board isn't happy about my decision." Serena nodded and set down her bag. "They don't need to like me. They need to see results. I reviewed your proposal. We can start with a pilot center in Harlem, a building with coding classes, art studios, and a community shop selling handmade goods for revenue." Ethan slid a folder toward her. "Good. I've updated the financials. $2 million for purchasing and renovating the warehouse on 125th Street. The shop could generate $50,000 annually from mural sales and crafts, plus job training contracts with local businesses." Serena flipped through the documents, impressed by the level of detail. "But we also need digital skills classes for adults," she said. "Many people in Harlem want career transitions, not just kids learning to code." Ethan scribbled notes quickly, eyes brightening. "You're right. I've been too focused on youth programs. Do you have anyone in mind for instructors?" Serena hesitated, then said, "Hire from Harlem. People like Keisha Monroe, a single mother who studied programming at a local center. She can teach others." Ethan nodded. "Done. Let's bring her on board. We need a team that reflects the community." Their discussion stretched past noon, ideas flowing like a river. Serena felt an unexpected connection with Ethan, not just because of their shared vision, but because he listened to her, something few executives ever did with a janitor. But the atmosphere shifted when Ava called during lunch. "Serena, where are you?" Ava's voice was tight. "Everyone in Harlem is talking about you working for a white CEO. Some think you're selling out the community." Serena clenched the phone, heart stinging. "Ava, I'm doing this for Harlem. He doesn't control me. I have decision-making power in the project." Ava sighed. "I believe you. But not everyone does. You need to talk to people. Explain. Otherwise, they'll think you're just Caldwell's puppet." That afternoon, Serena and Ethan worked in the conference room, preparing a proposal for the board. Serena presented data from community surveys. 85% of Harlem residents wanted a safe space for children, and 70% were interested in digital skills training. Ethan added financial projections, showing the center could sustain itself after 18 months through shop revenue and business partnerships. But as they exited the room, Daniel Harper, the board chairman, stopped them in the hallway. With silver hair and a cold gaze, the older man looked at Serena, as if she were making a mistake and needing correction. Caldwell said sharply, "What are you doing with this appointment? She has no executive experience. Shareholders won't support a charity project." Ethan stood tall, voice calm but firm. "This isn't charity, Daniel. It's an investment in the future." Serena has a master's in community development and 6 years of on-the-ground research in Harlem. She sees what we can't from the boardroom. Harper raised an eyebrow, eyes shifting to Serena. "Is that so?" Then, "Ms. Jackson, prepare to present to the board this Friday. If you can't prove your value, this project will be scrapped, and you, Caldwell, will be held accountable." He walked away, leaving the air heavy. Serena felt the weight of pressure settling on her shoulders. She turned to Ethan, doubt creeping in. "Why are you taking this risk? If this fails, we both lose everything." Ethan met her gaze, sincerity in his eyes. "Because I'm tired of chasing profits alone. I grew up in Detroit, Serena. I saw factories close and families fall apart. I don't want Apex to be just another money-making machine. You're the one who can help me change that." His words struck a deep chord in Serena, but she held her guard. "I'll work with you, but not for you. I'm doing this for Harlem." That night, Serena returned to her apartment, her mind racing. Ava was waiting at the corner coffee shop, eyes still full of worry. "Did you meet Harper?" Ava asked. Serena nodded, recounting the confrontation. Ava took her hand. "Serena, I know you want to change Harlem, but if Caldwell fails, they'll blame you. Are you ready for that?" Serena looked out the window, the Harlem streetlights flickering. In her pocket, the warehouse key felt heavier. "I don't have a choice, Ava. If I don't try, my mother's dream will always be a dream." Ava gave a faint smile. "Then do it. But keep your eyes open. Don't let them turn you into a pawn." As Serena lay in bed, her eyes fell on the sketch of the community center pinned to her wall. She thought of Ethan, the sincerity in his voice and the world of power he represented. Friday would be her first real test. She would have to convince a board that didn't believe in her. Not just for Harlem, but for herself. Could she overcome the doubt and prove that a janitor could change an entire system? In the days following the confrontation with Daniel Harper, Serena Jackson threw herself into work like a storm. Her small office on the 60th floor of Apex Solutions, once a storage room, had become her command center. Sketches of the Harlem Community Center covered the walls, coding classrooms, art studios, and a retail shop for murals and handmade crafts to generate revenue. Serena worked with Ethan Caldwell, the CEO of Apex, preparing for the board presentation on Friday. But every skeptical glance from colleagues, every whisper behind her back, reminded her that she didn't belong in this world. In her coat pocket, her mother's old warehouse key, a symbol of the Harlem dream, felt like a talisman urging her forward. Ethan and Serena often stayed late, discussing the project over takeout dinners. Ethan shared his story one evening, with Manhattan lights glittering through the windows. He said, "I grew up in Detroit," voice low, gaze distant. "When the factories shut down, my neighborhood fell apart. My dad lost his job. My mom worked 2 shifts to raise me. I built Apex, so no one else would have to go through that." Serena looked at him, seeing not a powerful CEO, but a man who had known loss. She responded, her tone softer than usual. My mother was a painter in Harlem. She wanted to open a studio for kids, but violence took her from me when I was 15. My dream is to finish what she started. At that moment, an invisible thread formed between them. Serena felt Ethan's sincerity, but reminded herself to stay guarded. He was a white man, living in a world of power she had always been wary of. Yet as they sketched out plans for the center's tech playground, their hands accidentally touched, and she didn't pull away immediately. Ethan looked at her, eyes gentle, no pressure. "You have a gift, Serena," he said. "Not just with the community, but with making things real." She smiled, her heart racing, but quickly returned to the documents to hide her emotions. Over the weekend, Serena brought Ethan to Harlem to visit the warehouse on 125th Street. In the sunlight, the neighborhood buzzed with life. Small shops, kids playing basketball, and jazz music floating from a cafe. In a simple shirt, Ethan looked out of place, but tried to blend in. As they stood before the warehouse, a crumbling brick building, Serena pointed to a corner. "My mom painted a mural here once. I want the center to keep that spirit." Ethan nodded. "We'll make it happen. I've contacted an architect who specializes in repurposing industrial spaces. They'll start next week." As they walked away, a group of Harlem teens recognized Serena. "Yo, Miss Serena, you working with this big shot now?" one boy asked, eyeing Ethan suspiciously. Serena smiled, keeping her tone confident. "He's a partner, not a big shot. We're building a place for you. Coding, art, jobs." The boy shrugged, still wary. Ethan reached for Serena's hand to reassure her as they walked, but neither noticed that a passerby had snapped a photo of the moment, an image that would change everything. On Monday morning, Serena's phone exploded with notifications. A headline from the New York Business Journal read, "Apex CEO and former janitor. Relationship or PR strategy?" The photo of them holding hands in Harlem was front and center, surrounded by speculation about Serena's appointment. Her blood rushed to her face, hands trembling as she read the cruel comments. She slept her way to the top. Apex is using her for optics. Ava called immediately. "Serena, I told you to be careful. That photo's all over Harlem. People think you sold out to a white billionaire." Serena rushed to Ethan's office, her mind in chaos. He was already looking at the article, his expression tight. "Serena, I'm so sorry," he said, standing. "I didn't see this coming. I'll have PR handle it." But Serena shook her head, voice sharp. "PR won't fix this, Ethan. In Harlem, I'm losing the community's trust. They think I'm a traitor." She paused, pain in her eyes. "I told you my community doesn't need a savior. Now they think you are one, and that I'm your tool." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Serena, you're no one's tool. You're the reason this project exists. I'll speak to the press and clarify that you're an equal partner, but we need to stay focused on Friday. If we fail the presentation, Harper will kill the project." Serena took a deep breath, trying to hold back tears. She knew he was right, but the scandal wasn't just about work. It threatened her reputation in Harlem, where she'd spent her whole life trying to belong. That night, Serena met Ava at a diner in Harlem. Ava hugged her, but her eyes were still serious. "Serena, I know you believe in this project, but are you sure about Caldwell? He could walk away and leave you with nothing if things go south." Serena stared out the window, the streetlights flickering. "I'm not sure, Ava, but when he talked about Detroit, about wanting to change, I saw a piece of myself in him. I have to try. Not just for me, for the kids here." Ava squeezed her hand. "Then fight. But don't let them take who you are." When Serena returned to her apartment, She opened her laptop and reread the article and the harsh comments. She thought about Ethan, his sincerity and the distance between their worlds. She would face the board on Friday, but now the scandal had made everything more complicated. The old warehouse key seemed heavier in her pocket, as if reminding her of her mother, Harlem, and why she couldn't give up. Could she weather this storm and still hold on to her dream? On Friday morning, Serena Jackson stepped into the Apex Solutions boardroom on the 60th floor, her heart pounding like a war drum. The image of her and Ethan Caldwell holding hands in Harlem, splashed across the New York Business Journal, still haunted her. The cutting accusations. She slept her way to a promotion. Apex is using her to boost their image, echoed in her head. Today, she had to present before the board of directors to defend the Harlem Community Center project and prove her worth. In her coat pocket, her mother's old warehouse key, the symbol of Harlem's dream, felt like a source of strength, reminding her she was fighting for herself and her entire community. The boardroom was cold and austere, with a long wooden table and the stern faces of 12 board members. Daniel Harper, the board's chairman, sat at the head, his gaze as sharp as a blade. Ethan stood near the door, dressed in a charcoal gray suit, nodding supportively at Serena, but keeping his distance to avoid further suspicion. Serena took a deep breath, opened her laptop, and let her eyes sweep the room. She knew they saw her as a former janitor, an outsider in their world, but she also knew Harlem stood behind her. "Ms. Jackson," Harper said, his voice dry, "you have 15 minutes to convince us this project is not a mistake. Apex stock dropped 3% after the article about you and Caldwell. Shareholders are questioning his leadership and your appointment." His words felt like a punch, but Serena kept her expression calm. She projected her first slide, a map of Harlem with the warehouse on 125th Street marked in red. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, voice clear, "the Harlem Community Center is not charity. It's an investment in the future, not just for the neighborhood, but for Apex." She presented survey data. 85% of Harlem residents wanted a safe space for children, and 70% were eager to participate in digital skills training. She laid out the financial model: $2 million to renovate the warehouse, with projected revenue from a community shop selling murals and crafts, and job training contracts with local businesses. In 18 months, the center will be self-sustaining. It will also reduce Apex's hiring costs by training talent on site. The City of New York has pledged $500,000 in matching grants, increasing viability. She showed concept visuals, coding classrooms, art studios, and an outdoor tech playground, all designed with input from Harlem residents. One board member, Elaine Carter, raised an eyebrow. "Impressive data, Ms. Jackson, but you lack executive experience. How can we trust that you can execute this?" Serena took a steady breath, gaze unwavering. "I hold a master's in community development from NYU and have managed volunteer projects in Harlem for 6 years, with limited budgets. I organized children's art classes and raised $20,000 in grassroots donations. I don't just know the theory, I know how to make things work." She paused, locking eyes with Harper. "Judge me by results, not by where I came from. If the center fails within 18 months, I'll resign." The room grew tense. Harper tapped his pen on the table, eyes narrowing. "And your relationship with Caldwell?" "That photo suggests a lack of professionalism." Serena felt her face flush, but her voice remained composed. "The photo was taken during a site visit. We held hands to reassure each other despite community suspicion, not for personal reasons. This project is my focus, not rumors." Ethan stepped forward, voice steady. "Serena is an equal partner in this initiative. I'll take full responsibility for any misunderstanding, but her competence is unquestionable. The meeting stretched for another 30 minutes, with sharp questions about cost, risk, and long-term impact. When Serena finally left the boardroom, her legs felt weak, but a sense of relief washed over her. She had spoken her truth, not just to Apex, but to Harlem. Ethan followed her, pride in his eyes. You were incredible, Serena. They can't deny your data. But Serena shook her head, her tone somber. They don't need to believe me, Ethan. They need to fear losing. But in Harlem, I'm losing people's trust. I have to fix that before it's too late. That evening, Serena met Ava Thompson at a community center in Harlem. Ava's neat braids and her expression of concern led her into a room where a group of residents was deep in discussion. Serena, people saw the article, Ava said. Some think you're working with Caldwell for personal gain. Serena stood before the crowd, heart pounding. I know you have doubts, she said honestly. I'm Serena Jackson. I grew up here. I lost my mother to violence here. I'm working with Apex to build a center where our kids can learn to code, NT, and dream. No one controls me. But I need your trust. This center belongs to Harlem, not Apex. An older woman, Mrs. Rosa, stood up. You speak well, but how do we know you haven't been bought? Serena pulled the warehouse key from her pocket and held it up. This belonged to my mother. She dreamed of a better Harlem. I swear on her legacy, I will protect this community. The room fell silent. Then Mrs. Rosa nodded. All right, young lady, we'll be watching. Serena smiled faintly, feeling as if she had just climbed a mountain. Later that night, Serena received a text from Ethan. Are you okay? Harper is considering a no-confidence vote against me. We need to prepare. She stared at the screen, her mind in turmoil. Ethan had risked his position for her and the project. But the scandal and pressure from Harlem made her wonder. Was she pulling him into an unwinnable battle? She thought about the moment their hands touched, about his story of Detroit. Part of her wanted to believe in him. Another part feared that this closeness could destroy everything. In the dark, the warehouse key on her table seemed to whisper, keep fighting, but don't lose yourself. Serena Jackson entered the Apex Solutions Tower on Wednesday morning with heavy dread. The scandal from the photo of her and Ethan Caldwell holding hands in Harlem hadn't died down, and a second article, published by a tabloid that morning, had poured more fuel on the fire. The headline screamed, Apex CEO and former janitor, secret continues. The new photo, taken at an art exhibit last week, showed the two of them sitting closely, eyes locked in a way that suggested something more. Serena felt her chest tighten as she read the online comments. She's manipulating him for a promotion. Apex is turning into a circus. In her coat pocket, her mother's warehouse key, the symbol of Harlem's dream, remained a reminder to stay strong. But the weight pressing down on her was growing heavier. When Serena arrived at her office, she received a text from Ethan. Meet me in the conference room. Urgent. She rushed there, finding Ethan facing tense and speaking with Patricia, the head of PR. Serena, he said, his voice low. The board just called an emergency meeting. Harper is pushing hard for a no-confidence vote against me. And he paused, his eyes full of regret. They've suspended you and the entire Harlem project team, citing ethical violations stemming from the photo. Serena felt the blood drain from her face. Suspended? We're weeks away from finishing the warehouse. They can't do this. Patricia handed her a document, speaking gently. This is the official notice. You'll continue to receive your salary, but you're barred from the building and prohibited from contacting Apex staff, especially Ethan. Serena scanned the document, hands trembling. The project team, including people like Keisha Monroe, the single mother leading the job training program, had their access revoked. 6 months of work, hundreds of hours of planning, suddenly shattered. She turned to Ethan, her voice sharp. "You knew this would happen, didn't you? I told you Harlem wouldn't forgive me if I looked like your puppet." Ethan stepped closer, guilt etched into his face. "Serena, I didn't expect it to be this bad. I'm trying to save the project. Just give me time." But time was the one thing they didn't have. As Serena left the building, blocked from the elevators by security, Patricia discreetly handed her a small package. Inside was a USB drive and a note. From Ethan. "Open only if everything falls apart." She rushed home to her Harlem apartment, heart racing. Ava Thompson was already there, concern in her eyes. "Serena, I saw the news. They're saying Ethan's about to be fired, and you've been suspended. What's going on?" Serena recounted everything, voice cracking with emotion. Ava hugged her tightly, then pulled back with resolve. "I told you to be careful with Caldwell. Now Harlem thinks you betrayed them. You need to act, not sit here in regret." In her small living room, Serena plugged the USB into her laptop. A video showed Ethan in his office, eyes weary but resolute. "Serena, if you're watching this, the board has acted. Harper doesn't just want to stop the project. He's afraid it'll succeed and change how Apex operates. I've prepared for this." He pointed to a folder on the USB. "This is proof of Harper's offshore tax evasion, uncovered in a recent internal audit. Expose it, and he'll collapse. But be careful, it'll cause a storm." He paused, voice softening. "I've also transferred the warehouse and the $5 million funding into the Horizon Fund, a nonprofit outside Apex's control. No matter what happens to me, your project is safe. I believe in you." Serena closed the video, head spinning. Exposing the evidence could bring Harper down and save Ethan and the project. But it would pull her into a dirty war, damage Apex's reputation, and potentially hurt Harlem. She thought of her mother, who taught her to fight with truth, not revenge. But if she stayed silent, Harper would win, and her dream would die. Ava, peering over her shoulder, shook her head. "Serena, don't do this. If you go public, you'll look like a saboteur. Find another way." Serena nodded slowly, but turmoil churned in her chest. That afternoon, breaking news exploded across the media. Ethan Caldwell was removed as CEO of Apex Solutions by a unanimous vote. Daniel Harper was named interim CEO and declared his intention to refocus on core values, including terminating the Harlem project. Serena watched the TV as Ethan was shown leaving Apex with a box of personal belongings, his face weary but composed. She tried calling him, but the number was disconnected. In desperation, she texted Patricia, who replied, "Meet Ethan in Harlem. 7 p.m. No one can see you." At dusk, Serena found Ethan in a small 125th Street office blocks from the warehouse. He wore a plain shirt, hair disheveled, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "Serena," he said hoarsely, "I'm sorry. I tried to hold on to the project, but Harper moved faster than expected." She stepped inside, taking in the stacks of files and laptops. "You planned all this, didn't you? The USB, the fund, everything?" Ethan nodded, handing her a folder. "The Horizon Fund now owns the warehouse and the $5 million. I transferred it all before they fired me. Your project is safe." Serena looked at the folder, heart pounding. But one question burned in her chest. "Why did you risk everything, Ethan? You could have lived comfortably without all this." He met her eyes, voice sincere. "Because I watched Detroit fall apart, and I didn't want Harlem to suffer the same fate. Because you showed me a better way to use my power." He paused, his voice softer. And because I believe in you, Serena. Not just in the project, but in you. His words touched something deep inside her, but guilt flickered in her eyes. I'm the reason you lost everything. If I hadn't agreed to work with you. Ethan shook his head, gently taking her hand. You're the reason I found myself again. CEO is just a title. Our vision, that's what matters. Serena looked at his hand, warmth spreading, but she pulled away. I need time, Ethan, and I need to know what we do next. Ethan smiled and pointed to a board on the wall. A 6-week plan to complete the Harlem Center. We move forward. Horizon Fund is ours now. Are you ready? Serena looked at the board, and then at the warehouse key on the table. She nodded, voice firm. I'm ready for Harlem. But deep down, she knew. Her decision not to expose Harper would complicate everything. Could she and Ethan rebuild from the ashes? Or was this only the beginning of a much bigger fall? Under the dim light of the small office on 125th Street in Harlem, Serena Jackson stood before a board covered in notes and sketches. Just hours earlier, she had learned that Ethan Caldwell had been ousted as CEO of Apex Solutions, and she, along with her project team, had been suspended. But now, in this cramped space, the Horizon Fund, the nonprofit Ethan had secretly created, had become a new ray of hope. The warehouse on 125th Street, along with $5 million in funding, had been transferred to the fund, safely out of Apex's reach. Serena looked at Ethan, her eyes steady but filled with questions. Where do we start? Ethan, sleeves rolled up in a white dress shirt, pointed to the plan on the board. Finish the center in 6 months. The warehouse has a solid foundation. We need to hire architects, builders, and staff from Harlem. Keisha Monroe can lead the vocational training program. Serena nodded, though a weight hung over her. The scandal surrounding the 2 photos, the hand-holding in Harlem and the art exhibit, still haunted her. Harlem was divided. Some supported her, like Mrs. Rosa, but many called her a sellout to a white billionaire. Her mother's warehouse key in her coat pocket was a constant reminder. She had to regain their trust. She turned to Ethan, her voice low. I want Ava Thompson involved. She understands Harlem, and she'll keep us honest. Ethan agreed immediately. Call her. We need people to believe in this project. Serena sent the message, but knew convincing Ava wouldn't be easy. Ava had warned her about Ethan from the beginning, and the scandal had only deepened her skepticism. When Ava arrived, her eyes were cold. Serena, are you insane? Working with him after everything? She glanced at Ethan, who remained silent in the corner. Serena took Ava's hand, her voice sincere. Ava, this isn't about Ethan. This is about Harlem. The Horizon Fund is a chance to make things right. I need you. Ava looked at the board, then at Serena. Fine, but if he, she pointed at Ethan, tries to take control, I'm out. Ethan stepped forward, voice calm. Ms. Thompson, I'm not here to control anything. I'm here to support you. Serena is the leader. Ava raised an eyebrow but nodded. I'll be watching you, Caldwell. Serena smiled, feeling like she had just cleared a major hurdle. With Ava, she had an ally who understood Harlem from the inside out. The next day, Serena and Ethan began recruiting. Keisha Monroe, the single mother who had learned programming, agreed to lead the job training program. I want to help people like me, Keisha said, eyes bright. Learning digital skills changed my life. They also hired a local architect, Jamal Carter, who pledged to honor Harlem's spirit in his design, with murals and open spaces that reflected the neighborhood's culture. But tension soon surfaced between Serena and Ethan. Serena wanted to prioritize building the children's coding classrooms, while Ethan pushed to open the community shop first to start generating revenue. We need to prove this model is sustainable, Ethan argued. Serena shook her head. The kids come first. If we lead with money, Harlem will think we're just another Apex. Their disagreement stretched late into the night, revealing the contrast in their approaches. Ethan, with his business mindset, wanted fast results. Serena, rooted in the community, prioritized trust and impact. Eventually, they compromised. Start with the coding classrooms, but fast-track the shop to open within 3 months. Serena left the office, exhausted but relieved. She realized that working with Ethan wasn't just about collaboration, but about learning to balance ideals with reality. To rebuild Harlem's trust, Serena brought Ethan to an after-school program at a local church. Children painted and did homework under volunteers' supervision. When Serena entered, the kids shouted, "Miss Serena!" A little girl, Maya, ran up and hugged her. "Miss, will the new center have robots?" Serena laughed. "Yes, and an art room too." Ethan knelt beside Maya, his voice warm. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Maya beamed. "A game developer!" Ethan exchanged a glance with Serena, something like faith returning in his eyes. "We'll help you get there," he promised. But not everyone welcomed Ethan. A father, Mr. Marcus, eyed him warily. "You're that billionaire, aren't you? Don't think you can buy our trust." Serena stepped in, voice firm. "Mr. Marcus, Ethan is a partner. I guarantee this center belongs to Harlem." Mr. Marcus nodded reluctantly, but his words lingered in Serena's mind. She knew Ethan was trying, but his presence, as a white man with a powerful past, still stirred suspicion. That night, Ava pulled Serena aside. "Do you think he's sincere?" Serena hesitated. "He wants to change Ava, but I don't know if I can trust him completely. If I let feelings get in the way, I might lose Harlem." Ava squeezed her hand. "You're the heart of this project, Serena. Don't let him, or anyone, make you forget that." Ava's words burned like fire, grounding Serena in who she was. Back at her apartment, Serena opened her laptop and found an email from the construction team. The warehouse had been approved for renovation, with reduced costs thanks to local contractors. She smiled, hope flickering back to life. But a message from Ethan made her pause. "Harper is suing the Horizon Fund, claiming we stole Apex property. We need to prepare." Serena stared at the warehouse key on the table, her heart pounding. They had rebuilt from the ashes, but this legal battle could destroy everything. Could she and Ethan endure what came next? Or would this end their dream? The brilliant early autumn sunlight bathed the old warehouse on 125th Street in Harlem, now transformed into the Harlem Community Technology and Arts Center. Serena Jackson stood before the building, her heart pounding as she looked at the gathering crowd. Children, parents, local artists, and even some skeptics who once doubted her. It had been 6 months since Ethan Caldwell was ousted from Apex Solutions, and Serena was suspended. Together, through the Horizon Fund, they had rebuilt from the ashes. Now, the building was adorned with colorful murals, gleaming glass doors, and a plaque that read, "Harlem, where dreams begin." In her coat pocket, her mother's old warehouse key, the symbol of the Harlem dream, radiated warmth, reminding her that today marked a milestone for her and the entire community. Mrs. Rosa, who had once challenged Serena at a community meeting, now stood beside her smiling. She said, "You did it, young lady," squeezing Serena's hand. Ava Thompson, now communications director for the Horizon Fund, coordinated the photographers snapping pictures. In a simple shirt, Ethan stood at the edge of the crowd, eyes full of pride, but keeping his distance to let Serena take the spotlight. The ribbon-cutting ceremony began with Serena's speech. She said this center doesn't belong to me or the Horizon Fund, her voice echoing through the speakers. It belongs to Harlem, to all who dared to dream of a better future. Applause rippled through the crowd, and Serena felt a rush of emotion swell within her. Inside, the center was a marvel. A coding classroom with brand new computers, a vibrant art studio, and a community store displaying murals and handcrafted goods made by Harlem residents. Keisha Monroe, the single mother leading the vocational training program, introduced a group of recent graduates in digital literacy. "I was a cashier," Keisha told a reporter, her eyes bright. "Now, thanks to this center, I run a small web design business." Her story went viral on social media, symbolizing the project's impact. The center's influence was immediate. Over 200 children registered for coding and art classes within the first week, keeping them off the streets. Local businesses reported increased foot traffic due to the community store. Youth-related crime dropped by 10%, according to police data. The media praised the project. "Harlem reborn through the vision of a former janitor," one headline read. But not everything was smooth. Daniel Harper, now interim CEO of Apex, began spreading rumors that the Horizon Fund was anti-business and manipulating the community. Some conservative outlets jumped on the narrative, calling the center a socialist experiment. Serena faced new pressure from within Harlem. At a community meeting, Mr. Marcus, the same father who had once eyed Ethan with suspicion, stood up. "Ms. Jackson, the center's impressive, but you partnered with a white billionaire. How do we know he's not using you to clean up his image?" Serena took a breath, gaze unwavering. "Mr. Marcus, I make the decisions at Horizon Fund. Ethan provided resources, but Harlem shaped the vision. If you see any signs of manipulation, I'll be the first to stand against it." Mr. Marcus nodded, though his eyes remained wary. Inside, Serena wrestled with a growing fear. The center's success filled her with pride, but the media attacks and Harlem's lingering doubts made her question. Was she losing herself in the process? She thought of Ethan, his steady support, and the divide between their worlds. One evening, as they reviewed progress at the center, Serena voiced her concern. "Ethan, I'm afraid Harlem will never fully trust me, because I work with you. I'm Harlem-born, but sometimes I feel like an outsider now." Ethan looked at her, eyes earnest. "Serena, I know my presence makes things more complicated. I can't change where I come from or what I represent. But I'm here because I believe in you, not for publicity." He paused, voice lowering. "If I'm holding you back, I'll step away." His words hit Serena like a blow to the heart. She didn't want him to leave, not just for the project, but for something deeper she hadn't dared admit. "Don't," she said quickly. "We need each other. But you have to understand. Harlem is my home. I can't lose it." They continued working, but another disagreement surfaced. Ethan wanted to invite major investors to visit the center and explore scaling the model. Serena insisted on strengthening community trust first. She argued that if we expand too soon, Harlem will think we're just chasing money. Ethan nodded, though a flicker of disappointment crossed his face. "I understand, but we need funding to sustain the center. I want to make sure it survives." They compromised. Invite one small, community-aligned investor instead of large corporate backers. That night, Ava pulled Serena into a cafe. "You okay?" she asked, her gaze sharp. "I see the way you look at Caldwell. Is there something going on between you two?" Serena hesitated, torn. "I don't know, Ava. He's genuine, but I'm scared I'll lose focus if I let my feelings in. Harlem has to come first." Ava held her hand. "You're Harlem's heart, Serena, but you're also human. Don't let this dream cost you your soul." Back at her apartment, Serena opened an email from the Horizon Fund's attorney. Harper's lawsuit against the fund had been dismissed thanks to documentation proving the warehouse was transferred legally. But the email ended with a warning. Harper is seeking other ways to apply pressure. Stay alert. Serena stared at the warehouse key on the table, a mix of pride and anxiety flooding her. The center had transformed Harlem, but the next storm might already be on the horizon. Would she and Ethan be able to defend this dream from what came next? 3 months after its grand opening, the Harlem Community Technology and Arts Center had become a blazing beacon of hope. Vivid murals blanketed the building's exterior, coding classrooms buzzed with children, and the community store, selling murals and handcrafted goods, had brought in $20,000 in just the first month. Serena Jackson stood in the small Horizon Fund office, looking out the window at the tech playground, where teens were testing self-built robots. In her coat pocket, her mother's old warehouse key, the symbol of Harlem's dream, seemed to glow with the warmth of their success. But Serena knew the light also brought new pressure, maintaining Harlem's trust and protecting the center from outside threats. The center's success could no longer be ignored. A report from the local police showed a 15% drop in youth crime thanks to after-school classes. Keisha Monroe, who led the job training program, had helped 30 adults find tech jobs, including one with a startup in Manhattan. Social media overflowed with stories about the center, and the hashtag Harlem Rising went viral. But Daniel Harper, Apex Solutions' interim CEO, continued his attacks, calling the Horizon Fund an unsustainable social experiment on business forums. Even some Harlem residents, despite supporting the center, still questioned Ethan Caldwell's role, the former white billionaire who once helmed Apex. One morning, Serena received a call from Margaret Lynn, Apex's largest shareholder. Ms. Jackson's sharp voice cut through the phone. "I visited the Harlem Center. I was impressed. I want to meet with you and Caldwell to discuss a potential partnership." Serena hesitated, glancing at Ava Thompson, now the Horizon Fund's communications director, organizing papers nearby. "A partnership with Apex? After everything they've done?" Ava raised an eyebrow. "Be careful, Serena. They might want to capitalize on your success." Serena nodded, but she also knew this could be a chance to secure the center's future. That afternoon, Serena and Ethan met Mrs. Lynn at a cafe in Manhattan. In a casual shirt, Ethan looked more at ease than during his CEO days, but his eyes were still sharp. Mrs. Lynn, an Asian woman with silver hair and a commanding presence, got straight to the point. The Harlem Center proves that profit and social impact can coexist. Apex stock is down 5% under Harper, who's ignored community initiatives. I want Horizon Fund to partner with Apex and Caldwell to be back as a strategic advisor. Serena's heart pounded. This partnership could bring millions, but it also meant returning to the world that once cast her and Ethan out. Ethan looked at her, waiting for her lead. "Mrs. Lynn," Serena said firmly, "I'll agree to the partnership. On conditions. Horizon Fund retains complete control over community projects. I'm appointed permanent director with a seat on Apex's board." Mrs. Lynn smiled. "Decisive. I like that. What else?" Serena continued. "Harper must go. He tried to destroy our project." Ethan added, his voice steady, that Apex must commit $10 million to launch 3 new centers in other cities, following the Harlem model. Mrs. Lynn nodded. "I'll bring this to the board. But prepare yourselves. Harper won't step down quietly." That night, Serena and Ethan celebrated quietly at the Horizon Fund office, though tension lingered. After the staff left, Serena remained with Ethan, staring at a map of future center locations. "Ethan, if we partner with Apex, I'm afraid Harlem will think I sold out the dream, she said softly. Ethan looked at her with sincerity. Serena, I know what it's like to be doubted. When I was ousted, I thought I'd lost everything. But you showed me real worth isn't in titles. It's in what we build. He paused, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a minor wooden key carved by a student at the center. I asked a kid from the art class to do this. It's not the warehouse key, but the key to our future together, not just in work. Serena took the key, heart pounding. She felt the depth of Ethan's words, a more than symbolic gesture. Ethan, I want to believe you, she said, voice trembling. But I need time. Harlem is my home, and I can't let emotions cloud that. Ethan nodded, eyes gentle. I'll wait, Serena. But I want you to know, I don't just want you as a partner in this project. I want you in my life. However, you choose to be. His words electrified her, but she kept her boundaries. She thought of her mother, of Harlem, of Mr. Marcus's wary eyes, and Mrs. Rosa's unwavering support. We need clear lines, Ethan. The work comes first, at least for now. Ethan smiled, respecting her decision. Understood, but I'm not done trying to earn your trust. The next morning, Ava pulled Serena aside at the center. I heard about the Apex deal, Ava said, her gaze sharp. Are you sure? Going back to them might be a trap. Serena took Ava's hand. I know the risks, but this is how we scale our dream without losing control. I need you to help me keep Harlem at the heart of it all. Ava nodded but warned, Harper will retaliate. Be ready. When Serena returned to the office, an email from Mrs. Lynn was waiting. The Apex board had approved the partnership. Serena would remain director of the Horizon Fund and receive a board seat. Harper had been removed, but the email ended with a warning. Harper is planning to sue you and Caldwell personally. Prepare for a legal battle. Serena stared at the wooden key on her desk beside her mother's warehouse key. This victory was monumental. But the storm wasn't over. Could she and Ethan protect their dream from what was coming next? 2 years after the grand opening of the Harlem Community Technology and Arts Center, Serena Jackson stood in the Horizon Fund's office, staring at a wall map lit with 12 red dots stretching from Detroit to New Orleans. The Horizon Fund now oversees 37 community centers that serve over 100,000 people. Each center followed the Harlem model: coding classrooms, art studios, community-run stores selling murals and crafts, and job training programs. Her mother's old warehouse key in her coat pocket, Harlem's dream-made metal, remained a constant reminder of her journey from janitor to national movement leader. But Serena felt a quiet emptiness deep inside. As the dream expanded, was she drifting too far from Harlem? The Horizon Fund's success had changed the game. A recent report showed youth crime down 20% in areas where the centers operated, 1,500 jobs created, and $2 million in national community store revenue. The partnership with Apex Solutions, finalized after Daniel Harper's ousting, brought in $10 million to build 3 more centers. Ava Thompson, now Director of Communications, led a sharp media campaign countering conservative claims that the fund was anti-business. We're not anti-business, Ava said in an interview. We're redefining business for people. Keisha Monroe's journey, from cashier to tech entrepreneur, had become a symbol of what the Horizon Fund could do. But expansion came with its challenges. One morning, Serena received an email from Harvard Business School. They invited her to teach a new course, Community-Centered Enterprise. They're calling it the future of business, she told Ethan Caldwell, now Horizon Fund's strategic advisor, in their shared office. Ethan, in a soft blue shirt, smiled. You should do it, Serena. Your voice needs to reach the next generation of leaders. But Serena hesitated, her eyes falling on the map's Harlem dot. It would mean splitting time between here and Cambridge. I'm afraid I'll lose touch with the people if I leave Harlem, even a little. Ethan stepped closer, voice gentle. Harlem is your heart, Serena. But your vision, it's bigger than one place. You've built something sustainable. Keisha, Ava, and the team can carry it forward. Serena met his eyes, sensing the sincerity and difference in how they moved through the world. Ethan always saw the future. She still walked barefoot in Harlem's memory. I need time to think, she said, shifting the conversation. What about Harper's lawsuit? Ethan's face hardened. Lawyers say he's probing for loopholes in the warehouse transfer, but we've got solid documentation. That afternoon, Serena met Ava at the Harlem Center, where kids were learning to code video games. Ava, sporting a fresh braided crown, watched her closely. Are you considering Harvard? You're Harlem's soul, Serena. If you leave, who keeps the compass? Serena squeezed her friend's hand. I haven't decided. But if I go, you'd lead here. You know Harlem better than anyone. Ava shook her head but smiled. You always throw me into the deep end, but I'll swim. For you. That evening, Serena and Ethan walked along 125th Street, Harlem's street lamps glowing like old stars. Ethan stopped suddenly in front of a shuttered storefront. He said, I found a place outside Boston, handing her an architectural sketch of a small house with a garden. It is not far from Harlem, but quiet enough for us to plan, personally and professionally. Serena looked at the drawing, heart fluttering. The wooden key Ethan had given her a year ago, crafted by a student, is now hanging in her office. That gift echoed in this offer. But a shadow of fear crept in. Ethan, I love what we've built, but even partly leaving Harlem feels like betraying my mother. Ethan took her hand, eyes tender. I don't want you to leave Harlem. I want us to build a balance. Keep Harlem in your heart, but let your dream grow. Wherever you go, I'll follow. His words touched a deep place in her, but she pulled her hand away. I need to be sure, Ethan, not just about us, but about who I am in all this. Ethan nodded, not pressing. I understand, but I'm not giving up. The next day, Serena got the news. A conservative media group, backed by Harper allies, launched a smear campaign calling the Horizon Fund anti-business and a threat to traditional values. Ava immediately organized a press conference. She brought in Keisha and a young student named Jamal. Jamal, a former dropout now running an app connecting people experiencing homelessness to resources, thanks to coding classes, spoke from the podium. Horizon Fund gave me a chance. Serena stood in the wings, eyes misty with pride, but fear simmered beneath it. Would Harlem believe in her through another storm? That night, Mrs. Rosa invited Serena to her Harlem home. Baby girl, I saw the news, the elder said, handing her a cup of tea. Some people still doubt you because you work with Caldwell. But I know what that center did for our kids. You keep doing right. We'll back you. Serena hugged her tightly, strengthened by the support. But when she returned home, an email awaited. Harper had officially filed a lawsuit against her and Ethan, accusing them of misappropriating Apex assets. Serena stared at the warehouse key on her desk, next to the wooden one from Ethan. Their movement was spreading, but the storm Harper summoned might destroy it all. Would she have the strength to protect Harlem and her own heart? Morning light streamed through the window of the Horizon Fund office in Harlem, where Serena Jackson stood before a board covered with expansion plans. 2.5 years after the Harlem Center's opening, the Horizon Fund operates 37 centers across 12 cities, serving more than 100,000 people through coding classes, art studios, and job training programs. Revenue from the community store, selling murals and handmade crafts, had reached $3 million, helping the center sustain themselves. In her pocket, the old warehouse key that belonged to her mother, the symbol of the Harlem dream, constantly reminded her of her journey from janitor to movement leader. But Serena felt a new pressure: how to ensure this legacy endured without losing Harlem in the process. That morning's news thrilled the entire Horizon Fund team. Apex Solutions, under pressure from shareholders and inspired by Horizon Fund's success, had announced a restructuring, integrating the community center model into its business strategy. "They're following our lead," said Ava Thompson, Director of Communications, beaming at Serena. Harper has no other choice. After being ousted from Apex, Daniel Harper founded a rival foundation, but his top-down charity model couldn't compete with Horizon Fund's community-first approach. Serena smiled, but her heart was heavy. The invitation from Harvard Business School to teach a course on community-centered enterprise still haunted her. Accepting would mean splitting her time between Harlem and Boston, a decision that filled her with fear of losing touch with the community. During a morning meeting, she shared her thoughts with Ethan Caldwell, Horizon Fund's strategic advisor. "Ethan, I want to spread this model, but Harlem is my home. If I go, will I lose myself?" Ethan, in a blue button-up shirt, looked at her sincerely. "Serena, you've built a system that doesn't rely on one person. Ava, Keisha, and the team are ready to lead. But I understand that fear. We can find a way to balance." That afternoon, Serena and Ethan visited a class at the Harlem Center, where teenager Jamal Carter, who had once dropped out of school, presented his app, a platform connecting homeless individuals with resources inspired by Keisha Monroe's story. "I built this because my family was once homeless," Jamal said, eyes bright. Serena hugged him, proud. "You're the reason we do this, Jamal," she said. Ethan stood beside her and whispered, "This is the real legacy. Young people like Jamal." That moment made Serena realize that the center wasn't just a building, but transformed the lives of its life. But the challenges weren't over. An email from Horizon Fund's legal counsel warned Harper had filed a personal lawsuit against Serena and Ethan, accusing them of misusing Apex's reputation to build the Horizon Fund. Though the lawsuit was weak, it triggered criticism from some conservative media outlets, labeling Serena an opportunist and Ethan a disgraced billionaire. Ava launched a counter-campaign, inviting Jamal and Keisha to speak to the press. Keisha said firmly that the Horizon Fund doesn't take, it gives opportunity. Serena stood behind them, heart troubled. She feared the scandal might shake Harlem's trust, especially as she considered stepping away. That evening, Serena visited Mrs. Rosa at her Harlem home. "Sweetheart, I saw the news," Mrs. Rosa said, handing her a plate of cookies. "Harper is just trying to scare you. But Harlem believes in you. You've given the children a future." Serena held her hand, eyes glistening. "Mrs. Rosa, I've been invited to teach at Harvard. But if I go, I'm afraid Harlem will think I abandoned them." Mrs. Rosa laughed. "You're not abandoning Harlem. You're taking Harlem to the world. Go, but remember to come back." Her words unraveled the knot in Serena's heart. She decided to accept the offer from Harvard, on one condition. Ethan would help her build a center in Boston, modeled after Harlem. When she shared her plan with Ethan at the office, he smiled. "I've been thinking about Boston for a while. We could make it our Northeast hub and split time between there and Harlem." Serena nodded, but added one more request. "We need to make sure Harlem isn't forgotten. I want Ava to be regional director for Harlem." Ethan agreed immediately. You always know how to keep things grounded. But a personal tension surfaced. Ethan brought up the suburban house near Boston again, where they could build a future. Serena sensed the more profound meaning, a shared life, but felt hesitant. "Ethan, I love what we have, But I need to know we're equals, not just in our work, but in everything. Ethan took her hand, eyes steady. Serena, I don't want you to change for me. I want us to create something new together, with Harlem in our hearts. His words calmed her, but she still needed time. Let me teach at Harvard first, then we'll talk about the future. The next morning, Serena received the news. The court had dismissed Harper's lawsuit, calling it baseless. The media pivoted, now praising Horizon Fund as the business model of the future. Serena stood on the Harlem Center's playground, watching the children laugh and play. Ava walked over and wrapped an arm around her shoulder. You did it, Serena. Now, conquer Harvard. Serena smiled, looking at her mother's warehouse key and the wooden key Ethan had given her on the desk. Her legacy had already changed the system, but her journey with Ethan was still unfolding. Could she balance Harlem, Harvard, and her own heart? The sunset bathed Harlem in golden hues, painting the Harlem Community Tech and Arts Center rooftop on 125th Street. Serena Jackson leaned against the railing, gazing down at the bustling neighborhood below. Kids playing basketball, artists painting murals, families gathering at the community shop. 3 years had passed since she accidentally dropped Ethan Caldwell's notebook in the Apex Solutions office. Since then, the Horizon Fund has transformed Harlem and reshaped how the world viewed business. With 37 centers in 50 cities, serving over 150,000 people, the Harlem model, blending coding, art, job training, and community storefronts, had become a national standard. In her pocket, the warehouse key that once belonged to her mother, a symbol of the Harlem dream, rested beside the wooden key Ethan had given her, like two pieces of a shared journey. Below, the center buzzed with evening classes, teens learning programming, adults attending digital skills courses, and artists collaborating on mural projects. Keisha Monroe, now National Director of Job Training Programs, led a group of trainees presenting business plans. Jamal Carter, the once troubled teen, now an intern at a tech firm, had just won an award for his app connecting homeless individuals to resources. Ava Thompson, Harlem Regional Director, coordinated a community event, her eyes bright with pride. Serena smiled, knowing this legacy would endure, even if she weren't present daily. Ethan Caldwell stepped onto the rooftop, sleeves rolled up on his blue shirt, his brown hair now flecked with silver. He stood beside Serena, his gaze tender. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, voice low. "My mother, Serena," replied, her eyes glistening. She'd be proud to see Harlem like this, alive, full of hope. Ethan nodded, looking down at the streets below. "You did what Apex never could. You changed an entire system." Serena smiled softly. "We did it, Ethan. I couldn't have done it alone." Last week, Apex Solutions announced plans to launch 20 new community centers based on the Horizon Fund model. Business schools, including Harvard, where Serena had begun teaching a course on community-centered enterprise, were incorporating the model into their curricula. Daniel Harper, after failing to sue Serena and Ethan personally, now ran a small charity and posed no real threat. Media outlets that once criticized Horizon Fund as anti-business now praise it as the future of responsible capitalism. But Serena knew the real value wasn't in headlines. It was in the lives transformed, like Keisha's, Jamal's, and thousands of others. Despite the success, Serena carried a quiet fear. Teaching at Harvard and building a center in Boston meant splitting her time with Harlem. She worried about losing connection to the community that had shaped her. One evening at the center, she confided in Ethan. "Ethan, sometimes I wonder if I'm leaving Harlem behind for a bigger dream." Ethan took her hand, eyes steady. "Serena, Harlem isn't a place on a map. It's the values you carry in your heart. You bring it with you wherever you go. His words untangled something inside her, but she still longed for a sign to know she was making the right choice. That sign came at a community meeting. Mrs. Rosa, who once doubted Serena, stood up. "Ms. Jackson, you gave Harlem a future. Teach at Harvard and bring our story to the world. We'll keep this center going." Ava, standing nearby, embraced Serena. "You're my sister, Serena. I won't let Harlem forget you." Tears welled in Serena's eyes. She felt freed. She decided to teach at Harvard and build the Boston Center, but keep Harlem as the Horizon Fund's headquarters, with Ava leading it. That night, on the rooftop, Serena and Ethan spoke of the future. Ethan mentioned that they had begun renovating the suburban house near Boston. "It's not about leaving Harlem," he said. "It's about having a place to balance our work, Harlem, and us." Serena looked at him, feeling the equality he always honored. "Ethan, I used to fear that love would distract me from Harlem, but you've made me stronger, not weaker." Ethan smiled and pulled out a new sketch, the suburban house with an art room named after Serena's mother. "This is for you, for Harlem, for us." Serena embraced him, feeling the circle of their journey closing. The warehouse key and the wooden key on her office desk now symbolized both past and future, united in this moment. They weren't just building centers or movements. They were building a world where purpose and profit, community and self, could coexist. As Harlem's lights flickered under the night sky, Serena whispered, "Together." Ethan squeezed her hand and replied, "Together." Below the rooftop, the center buzzed on children coding, artists painting, and community dreaming. Serena and Ethan's legacy wasn't made of buildings. It was made of potential awakened and dreams given a chance. The circle had closed, but their story of love, trust, and Harlem was only beginning.